as far forward as possible so that movement is slightly easier for those who will be entering. While we're doing that, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ashwin Berry, and I'll be your MC for today. Contrary to popular belief, I am actually interested in the ICT industry. I will not just be talking about selfies and Instagram. I think there's quite a lot for us to learn, and tomorrow we'll be seeing other youth much like myself, in fact, better youth than myself, who will be coming with innovative ideas and showing us what they have for the future Namibia. So before we allow our first speaker, we're going to have a first speaker. Does that make sense? No? Not yet? Allow me to explain. Now I have the pleasure and the privilege of introducing two of my wonderful esteemed bosses today from the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation. And before we receive our first keynote address, could you please help me welcome onto the stage the Director General of the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation, Mr. Stanley B. Similo.
Good morning, everybody. I thought that coups only happen in the political sphere. You would have seen I was not here yesterday. I arrived late last night. I had a personal matter that I had to attend to. But when I came in this morning, I was told we were just waiting for you. You will be on air in about 10 minutes. But being a broadcaster, that should naturally not be a problem. Before I continue, I think let me just recognize the presence of our minister in absentia, and I think he might still be coming. Members of parliament that are here, the PS, I don't know if our PS is also here, and then personnel, the directorate, the directors, and the relevant staff of the ministry, all fellow participants, exhibitors, and just those that came to see, and the young people, I'm told that they are also here in numbers, the innovators. With all that, all protocol is observed. Naturally for us, we see ICT as a catalyst that will seek to enable us to do, I would say, wonders. Before the advent of ICT in terms of evolution, in terms of where it stands, the notion was that we would have to wait for 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock so that we can see the news. But today, that aspect is no longer there because reporting now happens instantaneously. Everybody's got a smartphone, can actually tell on how a story is breaking, how it is evolving. So for us who are in broadcasting, there's added pressure now that we should start embracing this technology at a level that is unprecedented. It is no longer a matter of I will wait for the 8 o'clock news. By the time you run your 8 o'clock news, that is old news because people would have been trending all the way. I see my brother is laughing here. I think he agrees. But linked to that, there is an embedded value now that seeks to put pressure on everything that we do. Before, you would depend on what the papers write, you would depend on what you hear on radio and what you see on TV, and that would be the truth. But of late, people will give a vision of what they have seen, and many of these things are backed up with visuals. So there is an embedded value now that we should move towards saying that from an accountability perspective, both as a broadcaster and for those that are the newsmakers, that we should do what is right. Because if we say things that are not there, the truth will be there. Hence, I was saying, when we look at ICT, I believe that it is that catalyst now that is making our lives, in my view, very simpler. We are now pushing towards bringing out a 24-hour television news bulletin. But we're also doing it in phases. I think late last week, Umbi, you must just help me. We, on a TV side, brought a news bulletin running at 10 and then at 1. Meaning now that we can, from 6 o'clock, we have news then again at 7, Peter, and then around about 8 again, and then we go to 10, and then we go to 1, and then we have the evening ones running. But very soon, we should be able to actually have local news combined with international running almost on a 24-hour basis. And that possibility is created by the flexibility that the smartphone can give us. Because we are busy now training our reporters to be able to do mobile reporting. And this will say that we can actually use same footage for both radio and TV. And by the way, a radio is instant. At any given time, we can run anything that is there. We can break any programming. Our biggest challenge has been the television side. But as I'm saying, where we are now, we are almost at that stage where we should be able actually to run breaking news from a Namibian perspective as it is happening. We are busy with that training. Our guys are going through that. And we've also gone a step further. We said from a radio perspective, we need to modernize radio. Modernize in the sense that being the biggest radio operating entity in the country, we have 10 radio stations. It would be wrong if we would be carrying the same story, having a different angle on all the stations. That would then mean that the NBC is not coherent and harmonized in terms of what it does. So what we've done now is we've brought in the modernization aspect, which then seeks to say that at a particular time of the day, we would want, for instance, if it's the German service or the Afrikaans, English, or Murari, or Shwamba service, broadcasting a particular theme, very importantly, a theme, they can take that theme and tailor it for those that are listening to their stations. But what it will do for us as a broadcaster, it will show that we are very consistent in terms of how we are handling information. So this is where we are, and things are moving, and we are hoping that not in the so distant future, we should be able to give you all the good things that we are saying we are giving you. Now, there's another element now that is also playing in, of which the NBC will have to go into. It's the OTT services, the over-the-top services that are being there. We have to go into that space if we have to survive. Because what we have seen, what is happening is that we can also no longer just depend on government subsidy for our survival. We will need to bring in elements of business that will seek to say, how can we monetize that which we have? And I'm glad that I'm seeing that there's also quite a great deal of business people that are here. We will come and knock at your door and say, this is who we are, this is our reach, this is what the NBC can do for you. Because where we are now, we can have your business have presence on radio, 10 radio stations, almost in all languages spoken in the country. And then we've got 3 television channels through which your product can also be made known. And I'm also hoping that everybody who is here is a paid-up license, TV license holder. I've asked Mr. Mweti, is he here, to give me the list of everybody that is here. And if you don't pay, I will send the list to the minister and say, Minister, the ICT, the summit was good, but these comrades are also not paying their licenses. Can you please help me so that they can also just make their due? I see Mr. Hussein is laughing here, but I hope he's paid up. That's good. Politicians must always lead by example. That is a very good thing. Yeah. So that's more or less my part of the picture. And just the last one, we are now working also on a concept. You know, with radio, you hear the people. You know their voices. You've never seen them. But they are part of your life. And radio is nice because you could do anything else and still listen to it. We are trying now to find a way of bringing webcams into the studios, so that if you have internet connectivity, you should actually be able then to log on and actually see your favorite presenter. But we want to go a step further to say that if there is a radio program that has resonance with the television program that is running, we need to be able to split the screens and actually show you radio and TV and allow the two people, TV and radio, to talk. But also then bring in an added advantage of saying, if you are a listener or someone that is watching through either the Facebook comments or the Twitters, then allow that conversation to take place. Can you see now how we can actually now make everything to become one? And that wonder can only happen because of what people, especially the vendors, are doing in terms of ICT progression. And then in closing, I'm aware that yesterday the minister was referring to 100% coverage. For those that are watching what is happening, last week, no, not last week, the week before, we signed an agreement with MultiChoice Namibia. Now, what that does instantaneously is to allow the NBC footprint to be all over where the MTC signal is. So, Director, you can tell the elder that I think the percentages that we were shown here yesterday in terms of how far the radio and TV reaches from a percentage perspective, I think it's much broader now. The only information that I need to hear from Mr. Gertze, the general manager of MultiChoice, would just be to know how big his footprint is. And then we will have to do a recalculation. Because if I just think statistically, we should have met the 100%. But again, it will come back to who can afford seeing MultiChoice. But there is a great deal, I think, of percentage that would have gone into that. And then finally, in conclusion, we will be employing quite a lot of young people, especially those that are in the ICT space. I did say that my IT department, especially the technology one, we need the wizards, the guys who are young, who don't think like us, because we sometimes think differently, we stifle progress. We need those guys that will come and turn the business around and show us new ways of doing things. So if you are here, don't be surprised if I make a personal call to you. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for the Director General. Yes, as you can see, innovation, merging the two industries, and that's the only way we can move forward. One thing that stood out is the director said, we will be knocking on the business doors. And I immediately heard that song, Knocking on Heaven's Door. And then immediately after that, I thought to myself, yes, we are knocking on heaven's door in order to open up heaven for every single Namibian. We all need access to information. Now, continuing on the same subject, could you please help me welcome onto the stage Ms. Umbi Karwaya Upi.
Good morning. MP, thank you for that. Good morning, with a hand. A warm welcome to you. Like the DG said, there are also coups here. It just happened. I didn't expect my DG to be here because he was really on a very important mission out of the country, but I want to welcome him and acknowledge all our MPs, all protocol observed. And I was just telling him now when he went down, what am I supposed to say? He actually said what I was going to say. And then, because he's such a fast thinker, he gave me some tips. Go say this, go say that. But I wouldn't want to repeat a lot that was said today, because today we are going to talk about the impact of, let me see, isn't it true? The impact of ICT on broadcasting news and programs. He said already, he talked about how differently we are covering the news. I'm going to go through my presentation because I was thinking when I come here, I can just put it like to summarize instead of repeating everything. But I can quickly go through, is it this one, I was going to talk today about the traditional role of the news coverage, how we used to cover the news in the past. I've been with NBC now for 26 years. I started as a radio and a television reporter. And today when I'm here, I can't even believe 26 years later how rapidly and fast the ICT has changed the situation, has changed the media industry, has changed. The way we do things is not the same. It has changed a lot. It's now much, much different. And I was going to quickly touch on the traditional role of news and also the new media landscape. How is it today? How different is it from the past? And then quickly look on the benefits of ICT or news, the challenges that we have, and the way forward. I remember in 1990 when I started as a news reporter, it was very important. When you go into the newsroom, you get the brief. The brief is important. The editor will brief you. You are going on the story. Whether you have brought the story or the story was assigned to you, you are briefed in how the story should look like and the possible research that you have to do on that story. So the brief was important. And in the meantime, you will also tell the archives, the research department, please get me the research ready so that when I come back, I'm already briefed what to put in the story. And that is the traditional role of journalism, the values of journalism. It's very important for the brief. And then the reporter will go and cover the story, comes back, writes the story, give it to the editor to edit, then the story is published. It's published in your daily, in your monthly, your weekly, on radio, on television. The editor is, and was, at the time was, is, we don't have those, a lot of those anymore with the new media, but the editor is the watchdog, the gatekeeper. Because as journalists, whatever we do, we work in the public interest. So the information, when we talk about the journalism ethics, we talk about what constitutes a proper story. Are you ethical in your reporting? Do you have balance in your story? Are you accurate? All those things are the traditional journalism ethics. They are very important. That's why today we talk about the traditional journalism ethic, the traditional story, the traditional media, which is print, radio, television, film, and sometimes the music industry. And if you look at that quote from Michael Oreskes, it reads, we are, and when you listen to this quote, it actually summarizes the traditional way of thinking. And this is the way we are actually have to move away from to a certain extent because the world is changing and we cannot be stagnated in the way we were. It reads, we are the independent observers, we the journalists of the world. Who goes places, we go places our audience cannot. It's not true anymore, isn't it? Where our audience can't go. We dig where our audience can't dig. Not true anymore. Study and interpret what our audience do not have time to study and interpret. They have enough time to interpret, isn't it? You just go Google and you have already interpreted your own things, yeah? And so that our audience can understand better. They don't need anymore the traditional editor, the reporter, to help them think. They have now information available. And that's why the change in the new media landscape, the world of the traditional media is crumbling around us, and there's a rise in digital platforms. Isn't it true? The digital platforms. Even you have news right there in your hand. You can go online, you don't have to go and buy a newspaper. You just go online and you read the newspaper. It's right there in your hand. And everyone has become a publisher. I can be in my house and start to blog, to publish. Who can tell me anything? Is there an editor out there who will say, stop it, you can't do it? Is there a government who can say that? Maybe some governments. But you are a publisher, you can publish as much as you want, and the more consumers now are creating and publishing new information, their own information and news. There's Twitter, you guys go on and tweet, 140 words. WhatsApp, you can create groups. You can even report from WhatsApp, that's how it is changing. Facebook, all of us have Facebook. We follow Facebook. In the last Observer, they said the Facebook, is it actually giving you information? Or it is making you believe that you have information? Because you just read the headlines, then you think you are informed. So there are many questions that are arising. Are you really informed? There we have Facebook, Snapchat, we have Instagram, everything goes. And what it does now, what it is telling us, the traditional journalists, traditional media, the behavior of the public is changing. And as the behavior is changing, we also have to change along with it. We cannot be stagnant. Oma is in Katima, is also become a publisher. Whatever she is writing there is her voice. Do you see now? The voice of the marginalized. As long as you have access, and our DG talked today about that access that we might just have that 100% reach. She can sit there and also let her voice heard. And the smartphones, as we heard yesterday from Ms. Pronsloo, they are becoming very popular, especially in Namibia. She said Namibia is #1 in the world because we have 113% concentration, penetration of cell phones. Some people were disputing it, but later we will ask Ms. Pronsloo again to tell us. But that is what she said according to the CRAN data, 113% penetration. So what it means is, if we go on the trend that we are going, it means that you can carry your information in your pocket. The information is just there with the smartphone. You can do anything. Web streaming. Web streaming is also another way where you can actually stream your information wherever you are. NBC has 9 radio stations on the web, which means that wherever you are, you can listen to NBC. And it's not on NBC alone, it's all the other radio stations. We have Namibians in diaspora. They can access NBC anytime. I remember the other time my husband was trying to call his friend in Canada, and she said, no, I'm listening to K2T on Herero Radio, please don't call me now. She's in Canada. I'm listening to Herero Radio, Murari. I don't want to, don't call me, you are bothering me, call me later. You see, so we are all over. And it means that we are actually reaching now the international audiences. And it's also kind of money for us, because we have more ears, and in the future, we will have more eyes to look at the products that we will also show internationally. We have mobile reporting. The DG talked about it. Mobile reporting is now in thing. On your smartphone, you can report, you can edit, you can send the story to WhatsApp. The editor can look at it, it can be published. It's also cheaper. Active citizens, all over you go, you will see people are now active. When they see an accident, they put it on WhatsApp. Anything that happens, there's a car plane accident, anything, someone is dead, they just, even, I mean, they don't use the discrimination of the way we used to do it as the old traditional editors. Anything goes, which is not always, we will look later at it when we look at the disadvantages. But the active citizen, because the citizen feels, I have my smartphone, I can just also become a reporter. That's how the citizen has become now active. It's not just waiting there and wait for NBC to give him or her news. It's actually creating the news. There's an active citizen. Then we have the citizen journalism. Citizen journalism, it's now very popular, especially with the bigger organizations like BBC and so on. They cannot reach all the places. So what they do, they use the citizen journalist to wherever in the world, because you cannot be there anymore. And they will just send the information. And that's why they have even a team of journalists at BBC that verifies this information. Is that information correct? And sometimes when they report, they will tell you, this information has not been verified. And you will see from Syria, all the war-torn countries. So citizen journalism is very important because they are nearer to the story. When you are here in Namibia and there's a car bomb in Baghdad, it's better to get that, and it's faster to get it. But the problem is at the verification. When do you verify? But some media houses have that also in place. That is how it is changing. That's how the media process is becoming democratic. It's not autocratic anymore, where I used to say, this one goes on, that one doesn't go on. It's a democratic process where everyone has a say on what goes out, on what they put on the world agenda, on what they put on the national agenda. It doesn't depend anymore on us, the traditional media houses. And that is why we have to change. We shouldn't resist the change. We have to go along with the change. That is the only way we will move forward. And also, it is affecting our income because of the digital advertising. It is becoming a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so we are also losing out there. Because it's faster to advertise there, countries like South Africa in Africa, they are the ones who are on the far front, who leads Africa on the digital advertising and so on. Yeah, there you have it. I just that one for demonstration. He has 2 phones, but both of them are Katharus. We call them Katharu, ne? Katharu is just something, Katamakoshi. It's a Tamakoshi, 2 Tamakoshis. But sometimes they can also get a lot of information, especially with NBC radio. We benefit a lot from Katharu. Because that Katharu, I've seen people when they're cleaning, when they're Katharu is on, they're listening to NBC radio. I'm promoting NBC radio because I don't see any other radio that can beat us. It's only on NBC, it's ours. So there you have Katharu in Opuo. You can hear all the radio stations right there. And he's also showing his satisfaction with it. He doesn't anymore love on rumors, because NBC is there to give him the right story. Increasing international market landscape, I talk about it. On-demand TV, people can actually demand what they want to see. They have the PVRs, you also are familiar with it. You can record, keep the information, look at it later, catch up. You can catch up on everyone, you are all familiar with it. I don't have to go too deep in that. Blogging is very important. As you know, it started the Arab Spring. Do you remember the Arab Spring? It was blogging, and they even have their own group now to protect the bloggers. Because when you blog, you actually give news, but you give news with opinion. You understand? The social media news is not anymore the news like us when it is kind of sterile. Is it factual? Is it objective? Did you give both sides? Those things are not always considered when the social media are reporting on the news. And that is what is changing. And it's actually, for us, it's very exciting. It's very exciting because by reading that, you get new ideas and new angles from the opinions of people. These are just some of the facts, few facts to see really how we use the social media. Check emails. I see a few of you are doing it right now. I just spotted some, but I won't mention their names. Read news articles, yes, if you are traveling or wherever and also want to save some money, 56%. Look up directions. That one is a favorite. GPS, listen to music and radio. watch online videos, play online games, manage finances and bills is my favorite one. I like to sit and do all my things in my office when the DG is not looking. But not in his meetings, because he will just say, Umpiro, with that one eye, then he knows I'm busy with something. It's not really. Look up sports information, use social networking website at 63%. So there are many things that we are doing with ICT. We cannot ignore it. And the advantage for the journalist of ICT, it's immense, really. Immediacy. This immediacy is so important because, as I told you in the beginning, when you're getting the brief from the editor, you have to you have to call information. Please, I'm doing a story on Dr. Hage Geinkop is going to America for 23 days. Can you please check up everything that you can? But now, you just go on to get research on someone. You just go immediately on the Google. You Google, you get the information. But remember, not all the sites are credible, but at least it's easier. So for the reporter to get that information is faster, it's immediate and timely. For us to hear what is Donald Trump doing, ne? What is he up to again? What is Hillary Clinton? Yeah? We can even see how he looked like, what he said in 19 what. That's why the storage of information is so important. We're going to talk about also. You store that information today. How many years ago that tape is coming out where he was talking against women? And he has to apologize for it now. This is the importance of ICT and how it influences us in the media. The information spread fast. I'm coming from Swakop, I see an accident, take a picture, put on a Facebook, fast. Everyone in the world, they know, there was an accident. The person is still lying there. As unethical as it is, I just want to take the picture. The dog is eating the child. I'm running after the dog to see. A mother kills her child. Someone is recording, put the audio and send it around. Yeah? And then it is cheaper because the information is, you don't have to travel to get that information. You can get it in the comfort of your home. That's how cheap it can be. You have easy access to various research, yes, and the storage and the management of it is very important because you can store it and manage it. This one is one of my favorite stories because of Twitter. A certain Mr. Crumbs was on the Hudson River, and then he saw this plane falling into the water. He didn't see the plane, he was just in his New York taxis on the Hudson River. Then when he turned around, he said the plane is on the water. It's like, my God, you won't believe it. There is a plane on the water. He took the picture, he tweeted. That picture became an icon because it was shown on all the papers. People couldn't believe it. What is the plane doing on the water? But luckily, as you all know, everyone was saved in it. But it just shows you the importance of social media. And I myself, I'm a communication teacher. I teach communication. And we always look at what is the most effective way to communicate. You have the communication model. It's the receiver, the sender, the channel. But the ultimate in communication, to have effective communication, is interactivity. If we have communicated, like in the past, we just communicate as a mass audience. We tell the people, and 3 days later, they come back. But now it's interactive. If I put the story today on that online, people respond. They respond anything. I was just even telling my DG today, sometimes when I go at our president's webpage, then he says, okay, I'm in New York, I have just talked about poverty, eradication, and then the people come, why don't you eradicate corruption? And everyone come and tell things like that, you understand? So they respond, it doesn't matter, even if he's doing something positive. Sometimes he gets a lot of positive, it's true. People who say, oh, it's wonderful, you are doing good for our country, you are the best president. And then all of a sudden you have the other one again. Now the last one who comes will now, he didn't read the previous, now will go now with his negative. So that is the interactivity, but it's not all bad, it's not all lost, because through that you get a diversity of opinions. And those opinions are important because it can help you look differently at what you are doing. It can be criticism that can help you. So that interactivity is wonderful because people react immediately to the story. You also create the niche audiences, because the niche audience is an audience that looks at what I want to watch. I just want to watch the murder movies. Like me, I used to like those murders, serial killers. Then my husband will record for me all of that. Then if I'm like relaxed, he said, yeah, I got your 10 murder movies. Now you can watch who murdered who. I hope he's still going to count against me. Because my bosses look like, what? Could you be a murderer? And it's also, the other one I just added for, we used to say, we journalists, we are actually a little bit of narcissism in us, because we are the ones who said we are writing the first chapter of history, because journalism in itself is history that you record. Every day you record what is happening. So you write the first chapter in the history, but we can also say goodbye to that, because all of you can start that chapter. It's not anymore the traditional journalist. Okay, now we quickly go to the disadvantages. Misinformation on social media. I don't know if you all are aware of it. You just start a rumor, you start a hoax, anything. It can be misinformation, and it sounds like it is information, real information. But who can verify that information? And that's why the role of the traditional media is so important. It is again highlighted with this first statement, misinformation on social media. So and so is that Mugabe died. People will say, no, I'm just waiting, because maybe a lot of people want him to die. Kasho. So people will say, no, let me just wait for NBC radio or NBC TV, because it's a trusted medium. And that is the role of the traditional media. That's why our role, even though it's changing, it also remains the same, in the sense that people trust us. They will say, no, if NBC says so, it is true, because NBC still follows the values and the codes, the ethics of journalism. And our role becomes even more pronounced and more important in the changing times of ICT. This side also, colleague, they don't know because it's NBC. Another one is the unethical publications that I mentioned earlier, the deaths. I mean, the first of kin has not been notified. You have already put the car accident, someone died, someone has been killed. You open the Facebook, oh, this is my mother. But us, in the traditional media, we don't do that. First, we need a death certificate, and even when we put it, we have ethical considerations. The person's brain is out. We have seen a lot in our newsroom. We will sit and say, should we put this on? The person's brain is there. What I say, no. If it's like they just use maybe just blood or whatever. Other publications will say, no, we want to show, because this person maybe was drunk at some point, we want to show the results. So in the newsroom, every day we have ethical considerations. We sit together to see, should this go, shouldn't this go? And we take a conscious effort, what is in the best interest of the public? Everything we do is in the best interest of the public. But the people on the social media, they don't have the best interest of the public. Who is the public? They don't have that traditional knowledge, how important it is to take consideration when you are talking to the people out there. People are not machines. That person who means nothing to you means something to another person. And that's our considerations when we are in our newsrooms. Now you can see we are inundated with information, with a lot more information, but it's less reliable. Yeah, don't say, yeah, it's information, it's information. It's not always reliable. And in some countries, we don't have really laws to legislate what is happening. The way forward, it has already happened that the most media houses, they are now online. They are on Facebook, they are on Instagram. Because what happened is that all of you sitting here, when you're on your Facebook, you are scooping us. And we journalists, we don't want to be scooped. We can't wait, like my DG said today, wait for 8 o'clock to be told people went to America. No. Well, the people are even the one who's sweeping there at the airport. I see they are going to America. I put them on. You see, everywhere there is news. Everyone creates news. So we have to join them. If you can't beat them, you join them. So most of us, we are also we are on Instagram, we are on YouTube, we are everywhere. Anything we have to, but we still, at least on our side, we still maintain the standards. We have to maintain the standards because we are the trusted brands. And we can encourage the citizen journalism if we have the time and the resources to, because they are nearer to the story. And their account of the story is the story at the time, not what you come to interpret after 3 days, after the fire has already killed the people. The people who are burning in the fire must tell you, how does it feel? I'm here in this fire. Not wait for you 3 days later to say, should we put this on air? Should we put that on air? We have to join the people. The citizen journalism, it is our way forward. We have to accept. Sometimes we don't want to let go, but we have to. We want to be the heroes, the ones who scoops the news, the ones who want to be promoted and look good in front of the world to win the prizes. But anyone can do that now. The times has changed. And despite all the changes, journalism should maintain its core values. That's actually what makes us important. But when I look at this picture, I was actually happy and saddened. This is our future. The two brother and sister, they are in the phone. The other one is bored. No one is talking to her. Now she is just playing with, because she doesn't have a phone. If all of three had phones, they will be sitting there the whole day. Colleagues, let's continue to have that human interaction. If you start at this age, it's good, but it's bad. Thank you very much.
Could you please give her another round of applause? Yes, indeed, the times are changing and we need to change with the times. That's most of what I got from that speech. But we also need to be cautious. We can't take in everything. And we need to take things in a way that allows us to still be human, to still be Namibians. I do have a question though. Are we open to the idea of e-wallet for Lobola? Think about that. We'll talk about that later. Now, before we continue, I'd like to invite Mr. Stephanus van Staden from the Office of the Prime Minister, who's going to be talking about improving government services through data interoperability. Please help me welcome you onto the stage. After his speech, then I'll invite some questions. Is that all right? All right, thank you.
Okay, you ask me questions. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, my presentation today will primarily talk about one of the aspects of e-government, which is referred to as interoperability. It is a fairly new topic, I think, especially in our sphere of this. I've got a fairly lengthy agenda, as you can see. I'll quickly touch on e-government, and then I'll go into interoperability straight. Just as a refresher, the part on e-government. If we look at e-government, and I think this is quite important just to remember what we're busy with, it talks about service delivery, primarily. So it's really about creating relationships among government and its citizenry and its business in such a way that the services we render to each other is improved. So there are three definitions. Government uses the one which is from primarily a combination from the Gardner Group, and then the last one for its own policy. But really at the heart of it is really service delivery, using technology for services. Okay. If we look at the pillars that government is currently employing as part of its implementation, you can see it's quite a number of areas that we're focusing on. So we're talking about people. Primarily, e-government is really about people. It's not about technology. People tend to box e-government as a technology thing. Technology plays the smallest part in this whole e-government initiative, to be quite honest. Okay, so it's really about people. Okay, and if we're saying people here, it's about educating people, uplifting people, changing the skill set of these people to prepare them for this new digital environment, and then also to get them to participate in this new media. I think we've heard a lot about the new media now. Okay, for us older people, it's quite tough. Then the other area here is really to look at government processes and see how processes can be changed in order to accommodate technology. Okay, so if we can use technology effectively in processes, that speeds up service delivery. And then quite obviously, the area that I'm going to focus on is technology, and one aspect of technology. Technology is employed to do all these other things. So your government also requires resources. A lack of resources definitely hinders the development of e-government initiatives. And then you can see the other aspects such as leadership. We need visionary leadership, which will lead us into this new digital environment. We need strategies and policies to develop. Government has a strategy. We need legislation to support this new way of doing things. And our government is already busy finalizing that. And then it's a collaborative effort. Okay, we all need to work together. It's not just government. Okay, everybody needs to join. Okay, so if we look at the United Nations grades countries every second year based upon the following levels. Okay, so they've got a rating scale, and then they place you within these different levels. They will then give you a grading. Okay. So if we look at this, the last level is the connected level. However, from an academic perspective, for me, it's wrongly placed. But anyway, the connected level talks about connecting up government horizontally, vertically, and establish interoperability between systems. Okay, so I don't want to preempt the next slide, but you can see for the United Nations, the last level is really that everyone should be connected to everyone, and that exchanges of information should take place between everyone. Okay, and this must be done in a secure and trusted manner. So if we start to share information, we expand service delivery considerably, because my data can enhance the service of somebody else's database, hence he can provide a better service. Okay, and I'm going to give a typical example here. When you go to the bank and you want to open a bank account, what's the first thing they ask you? Provide me with your identity document. Okay, a physical proof of it needs to be provided. Quite obviously, from a citizen perspective, this puts a lot of strain on me. I need to go make photocopies. I need to carry the source documents with me. They require me to fill in many things. So it's really inconveniencing me as a citizen. And it's time-consuming. If we had all systems connected, this would have improved this service part, which they're offering to us, the creation of a bank account, considerably. So I could have given instead a biometric print, said, yes, please verify me. Home Affairs could have said, yes, this person is this and this data, is this person, and they could have copied the data and they could have created the account. Very quick, very easy. Okay. So what we are saying, when we reach this last stage, that is the environment that we need or that we're looking for. So we'll be all living with one part of ourselves in digital environment other than the physical world. And that's literally how our personas would be created in the future. You'll be two things, virtual and physical. Okay, it's a quite an interesting thing. I think the only challenge here is that our children are not playing anymore. Okay, and for ourselves, we're not exercising either, except our hands and our brains. Okay, so now I'm going to move into the area of interoperability. I'm going to tackle this. Interoperability is most probably the most important foundation block of e-government, okay, in the technology sphere part. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, so if we look at interoperability, what the academics say, and this is also the the definition that we've adopted. It says it's ability of disparate and diverse organizations to interact towards mutual beneficial and agreed common goals. So you can see it talks about a relationship that is established between two entities which will allow them to communicate. Okay? It says, secondly, it talks about sharing of information and knowledge. So once we have this relationship established, we can start to exchange information and knowledge. Okay? And then, quite obviously, attached to this, there are processes. So we have a relationship, we are sharing something, and there's a process of sharing this. And then lastly, it's done through communication system, information communication technology. So this is really what interoperability is all about. Taking a system, putting it in place, creating a relationship, start to exchange information through a specific process in a trusted and efficient manner. Okay, it sounds very simple, very easy, but I can tell you exchanges between banks and Home Affairs can be extremely challenging. If we look at interoperability itself, it has multiple layers as well. So you can see there are organizational interoperability. Our organizations are not interoperable either. You cannot imagine. We've got different policies, different organizational arrangements, covered by different legislation. Hence, it makes it very difficult to work with each other. Point in case, it's extremely difficult for Home Affairs to share information with NBC because the legislation is preventing them. Okay, so you can see already there are challenges of that sort. Then we've got technology interoperability, which talks about our networks, our application systems, platforms, data, which is very important, and then quite obviously our electronic processes. The interoperability of that layer. Well, that includes another information part at the bottom as well. So technology and data goes hand in hand in this case. So you can see these are, from a technology perspective, these are the three areas of interoperability that are of concern for an architect who needs to design a specific solution. Okay, if we go a little further on this stack, there are two other layers which is not mentioned here. The one is political interoperability, which is quite important. So that one I'll not touch now, but it's something that also needs to be looked at. Then we've got issues about cross-country interoperability, the sharing between organizations in different countries. Okay, Europe is a very good point in case, where they've got the Stork project running, for instance. Okay. In a technical sphere, interoperability also has maturity levels. So you can see, so the way that you engage each other can be in one of 5 ways, manners. And many of us are still doing it manually. We take our USB, we walk to the next organization, we plug it in, and they import the data. Okay, I think a large number of organizations is still using it. Some of us have now become more advanced. We've now gone to the ad hoc method. So there's some sort of direct connection between two systems, and they exchange in some sort of formal way already some information, but it's very informal still. And then so it all goes down till eventually we get to the unified level where we've got similar types of data structures, similar types of data, similar types of systems. And we can actually say that we've got an integrated environment. Okay. As far as I know, no government in the world at this point in time has reached level 5. Not even one. Okay, that's not me saying it. It's the last study by the UN. There's a UN country assessment report for 2016 for those who are interested. It's on the UNPAN website. Okay. If we look at interoperability, there are many challenges, and I'm just going to quickly run through just to sketch the background to the complexity. We've got 2 organizations that would like to start data exchange. First thing, our data structures are not the same. Okay? The way that you record people information is not the same that someone else records the people information. That's the first challenge. Then we've got quality differences. Okay, your data was updated 10 years ago. Ours was updated 2 years ago. So there are disparity between these data. And then quite obviously my 2 years ago data is not up to date either. So yes, mine is a little bit better than yours, but still we've got quality challenges. So whose data is the best and which one should we be using? Okay. Then we've got integration issues, difficult of maintaining. We've got different systems that have to be maintained. There are issues also with our back office or front office systems, complexity of integrating them. Typically your front office systems are the systems that you see on the web. Okay, those are your web applications, and that's where the people engage. Okay. I'm just running through some of the more common ones. Then there are issues of skilled staff. To create interoperable solutions, you need a complete new skill set, okay, which needs to be developed. Okay, these are system integrators that needs to work a lot, not just with different technologies, but also with different types of data. Okay, so it means that we have to ready our new students coming into the system for this new type of exchanges. Okay. Let me quickly look. If we're looking inside organizations, and I'm mentioning that we've got many organizations running many data, and they're not even interoperable in their own organizations. So how do we now start data exchange between organizations if we've not sorted out our internal organizations? Okay, we've got a lot of silos running. Okay, that creates a lot of challenges, I can tell you. A typical example, which I've picked up of late, we're doing a lot of coding now, country codes. If I ask a company, what is your code for Namibia? What code am I going to get? They will tell me my Namibia code is NAM. Others say, no, mine is NA. And this one will say, no, mine is 205. And the other one will tell me it's NAM 2020 or something like that. So there's no standardization in common data elements either. So all of this creates a vastly complex environment which needs to be somehow made interoperable. Okay, and here's a practical example which shows structural issues as well as semantic issues. Structural is the meta type of it, which explains how the data is structured. You can see here we've got a surname, we've got a column which has a surname, first name, sex and birth date. You can already see that there are naming problems between the two tables here. The second thing, you see that the data type is already a challenge. Okay, and the third thing, if you look, is the format of the data, which is a challenge. So these two simple tables illustrates the data interoperability challenge. So someone needs to, where we have that not equals, needs to fix that into equals. Okay, now I think that gives you a sense of where we are. So if you're having many systems in your organization, each with its own data set, each with its own structuring, own semantics, it's going to be very difficult just for you just to get the two systems normalized into a single data set, for instance. Okay. So what is government doing about this? And I think this is where we look at the solution now. Okay. Government has realized that for government to improve service delivery, we need to tackle the interoperability issue as a matter of urgency. Okay. So the government launched its e-government strategic plan of action. The former Prime Minister, Dr. Hage Geingob, launched that plan in 2014. In this plan, it is recommended that we start with interoperability, the implementation of interoperability framework and solution. Okay, so government went, and there were many visits to a country called Estonia. I don't know whom of you know where Estonia is. And Honorable Besaidnert was there with the parliamentary committee of the Prime Minister went and some other entities to go and observe the best of breed solution in Europe, which is also the world leading solution at this point in time. Okay, to see how they're doing this. So, having looked at this, we decided this is what we wanted. Okay, and the government entered into an agreement with them in November of 2014, with the Estonian government. Okay, they appointed the e-government academy, e-governance academy, that means quoted correctly, of Estonia as a partner for government to be assisted with. So you can see that now spells out the plan itself. So the first part of this engagement with Estonia was to first do a readiness assessment, to look at our systems. What do we have in place? How are they structured? To come up with a report. Okay. The second part was to put in place a test system so that we can start to practice. Okay. As part of this, we also went into an education part. Okay, where we took many people from multiple sectors, we took them to the classroom and we taught them interoperability. Okay, the technical solution. Okay, the implementation plan was developed, and then you can see the last part now is the full implementation of the solution, and that is to be finalized next month. Okay. So I think we are really, the car is nearly ready. The drivers have been taught how to drive, so we can nearly start driving. Okay, I think that's the stage that we are in. Okay. If we look at this project objective, and I think one needs to keep this in mind, okay, this initiative of government, it says, our ultimate objective is to improve service delivery through information systems integration in the most cost-effective manner. Okay. That's the driving force, so we will always keep this in mind. Okay. And you can see there's a footnote there which says interoperability is both a prerequisite for and then facilitate efficient service delivery of public services. So it's not whether we want it or not, it is when can we put it in place so that we can have it. Okay. And I'm just going to quickly, just by example, am I going to go through these? Okay, this is just some of the characteristics of the platform. I don't want to go into technical discussion. I think the slides will be provided. But what I would like to say about this, the environment that we're putting in place is a distributed environment. Okay, so it means that organizations will control their access to their own information. Okay, it's not a typical hub and spoke configuration where the central hub controls everything and everybody else must just fall into it. Okay, so who are the role players in this? Who are we targeting? Okay, first of all, it's important to note that there are three key role players here. There are service providers, service consumers, and then there's the central agency. Okay, so the service provider, quite obviously, that's a person who would like to provide services to others. Okay, interoperability services. Now, I'm talking here, if I'm saying services here, it means that you'll be providing something on this solution that someone else can use in order to get information. Okay, so you're providing a solution. So you're exposing something from your organization which you feel can be utilized. Then there's someone who's interested in that, who now can consume it and enhance their own systems with it. Okay. And then quite obviously someone must at least control this whole environment or make certain that it's governed properly. So the Office of the Prime Minister at this point in time will be responsible to enforce the policies. Okay, there will be a policy, and it's currently in its draft form, for this whole environment, which will guide it. So our job from Office of the Prime Minister is to register organizations, first of all, do the certification, do monitoring, and then provide support to everybody. So that's training support as well as technical support. Okay. But you will not see us there working on your engagements between yourself and the service provider. So service provider and the consumer, they are independent and they work with each other. Okay. We set it initially up, and after that, let's just say that'll become their baby. And I'll just now show. So this is how the model looks like. Okay. If you see in the middle, it's basically a bus structure. So in the middle, that cloud represents the internet. Then you see there are little locks. That implies that there's secure connections running between the different entities. And then you see that there are many databases running across. Okay, and underneath each database there's an adapter, and above the adapter there's a security server. So all organizations will have a security server and an adapter. Okay, so these are things that you need to put in place in order to do exchange on this specific bus, on this data exchange bus. Okay. So this will allow us then to securely do communication between two entities who trust each other. Okay, you can see the government portal is also there, and I'll talk a little bit about it a little later. You see there's another element which talks about, quick check. You'll see there's a thing which says central servers. the central service basically provides the private public key encryption. So this all runs with key pairs. Okay, so organizations will be assigned a key pair for their server, and that is the mechanism which will be useful for encryption. Okay, here's just another example of the direct communication part. So you can see there's a consumer and a producer. You've got the information system there, then you've got your security server. The other organization has also a security server. They've got an adapter, and they've got their database. So looking at this diagram, this now implies that this is point-to-point communication between two security servers. Okay. So the bank will have a security server, and the other organization which they'd like to communicate will have a security server, and there will be a secure channel between them, monitored by the central server. Okay, and there are certain rules that will govern this, rights rules, which will make certain that you can only talk to that organization and only access a specific service that they have given you access to. It's very secure. This is running in Estonia, thousands of companies. Okay, and now in Denmark, and it's been implemented to Mauritius and somewhere else in Africa as well. Okay, and this is just the overall architecture. So ultimately, from an architectural design, this is what you will see. You can see there are PKI services. The PKI services in this regard becomes very important because it requires that we put up a national private public key encryption authority. Okay, who can issue Namibian companies and citizens with private public keys. Okay, currently that doesn't exist, but I believe the new legislation makes provision for it. I think it will be under CRAN. I think that was the idea. Office of the Prime Minister looks at the central services. So Office of the Prime Minister will register companies and initially provide the keys for the security service. After that, the companies themselves decide what they would like to share with each other. Okay. That's just the technology stack for those who are technically minded. It uses secured web services, and that's typically what you'll see. So I'm not going to go into discussion of that. It's on the presentation, but for those who are familiar with SOAP web services, it uses SOAP web services, which is encrypted. Okay. This is just a small explanation of what the central server does. The central server keeps a registry of all security servers. Okay, and this registry is encrypted. So when you want to talk to it, it will identify it and also make certain that the source is also known. Okay, and that the source actually can communicate with that specific destination only. Okay, this is just what the security server does. I'm not going to go to that now. What I would like to just show, this is the envelope that is sent between the systems. Okay, this is an XML file, and this is the structure of the packet that you send between two systems. Okay, in this, it has a lot of information. Okay, this is really just the skeleton of it. So what we teach developers is how to complete this specific file. Okay. So in here, you will have the name, the surname, whatever. It depends on what you're asking. Okay. And here's just two scenarios, how it's usually used. So the first scenario is, and this is from a document perspective. In this case, a portal is connected to the interoperability solution. Okay, so I log in, I go to the portal, I post my document. So here I'm using a front-end application, and it goes directly to a back-end application. The second scenario is I've got an information system, which is connected to another information system via the interoperability solution. Okay, so that's automated. So you don't know that it's actually connecting. A typical example would be here. I'm capturing the details of a person, and now I put in the ID number. The system quickly runs over to Home Affairs, checks whether this ID number is valid, comes back, and the processing continues. As an operator, I didn't even know that it went to check at Home Affairs. Okay, it was done transparently. Okay. Currently, these are the organizations that I've been piloted with, and you can see these are the important ones. Office of the Prime Minister, Human Capital Management. For us, this is our HR system. Okay. Important role players for us here is GIPF, government pensions. We are having difficulty to communicate who is now retired, who's deceased, and it becomes quite challenging for the family to get their money from GIPF because of this lack of integration. So we've put ourselves there. Ministry of Home Affairs, important role play for everybody. Okay, the positive identification of people, it's a big role that they have. Okay, Ministry of Finance is taxation, and taxation would most probably go live end of March next year. Okay, so for the offices, not e-filing yet. Okay, but the new system is in place, so that system will connect to deeds, not deeds, but to business registration, as well as to Home Affairs. Okay, and then they will most probably connect to banks in the future to look at your income. Okay, Social Security, I think they were. I cannot remember. I think they've got Social Security included as well. Then you can see Ministry of Trade is there with their company registration. Company registration is what we refer to as a foundation database. Many need it in order to do other business. Okay. Then we've got the Roads Authority with e-Natus. For e-Natus, it's important to verify identities. Okay. And if we can somehow speed up the issue of motor vehicle licenses, I'll be extremely glad. Okay, and then we've got GIPF at the bottom. Quite obviously, that's more government-to-government engagement, or government to its parastatal engagement, but it's an important one. Okay, this is just the development process. As you can see, there are two parties involved here. The one which develops the service, and the one that needs to create the application to consume the service. Okay, so when we are teaching or training people, we're training them on both sides of this. Okay, it's not something that you can go to university for. This is a proprietary solution, so you need to be taught this proprietary solution from someone who knows it. Okay. How it uses standard technology, which is already in the marketplace, but it's been customized to fit in with this interoperability solution. So that's what we need to teach. Okay. So what have we done to date? We've been training all the system administrators and developers in government, and even some private companies and some parastatals. We've set up the piloting system. That's been running. The regulations are being drawn up as we speak. And then we've also given an input into the legislation, into the bill, handled by Ministry of ICT, in order to cater for this. I don't know whether it was adopted, but okay. And I think that's it from my part. Thank you. You want to ask some questions? Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can take some questions. On the side of it, yeah.
Thank you very much. I just want to know, are the standards and what's the other word? Frameworks available for developers or any person who wants to assist in the development of the services? What they need to do, what are the minimum, what are the maximum, and so on? Are those documents available?
Any other questions?
Are there any other questions?
I'll just take two of them, 2, 3 at a time.
Thank you very much. This system, I understand, is intended for OMAS, but I want to understand whether local authorities are also part of this. Thank you.
I think we'll try to keep it to 2 questions per speaker.
Okay. Okay, let me just first answer the first one. Okay, the documentation was prepared for the developers and for administrators It was only received this week. The question about distribution, I think we will only give it to the participants in the training. Okay. You know, it becomes very difficult to give it to people who have not been physically on the training and physically seen it. You cannot go and set this up at your home, unfortunately. Okay. So it will not make sense if you read it without physically working on that specific solution. Okay, then the scope deployment. This is actually a national interoperability solution. Okay, it's meant to serve Namibia, not just government. So the ultimate vision here is that everybody should start to use this solution to start to exchange and share information. Okay, bank to bank, any company to any company, and quite obviously government is also factored into this. But starting off, you can see from a piloting perspective, we need to stabilize it, make certain that we get to a good understanding of the solution in order to provide a good support in the future for the solution. And then also to start to develop the base of skills, which does not exist at this point in time. Yeah. But I mean, this will scale quite fast. Once the uptake starts, I can tell you it's gonna move rapidly. This affords opportunities to organizations which never had it before. All the red tape will be cut, hopefully. I think the only difficulty here is that two parties who would like to go into extra, it needs to go into a memorandum of understanding. So they need to agree with each other what they're going to provide, how they're going to provide it. So basically looking at the performance issues. And then also, at the end of the day, look at also the duration of this provision. But those are standard contracts outside of the technical solution. Okay, I think that's it for my part.
I believe that is all. Oh, is there another question? Oh, yes.
Okay.
First, could you please give a round of applause to Mr. van Staden for the information he's given? I understand that there were also some questions for Ms. Karoya Upi. So it's okay if I think I can just bring the microphone to you. I think it might be.
Thank you. My question is regarding the TV license. Actually, I had some discussion with some people last week, and they wanted to, like, you people in IT, you keep asking us to pay for license, but we're already paying multi-choice. Why MBC does not collaborate with multi-choice, so that at least you charge 20 extra per month, so that, you know, it will go to the TV license. Because now they are confused. Actually, it left me with, I didn't have an answer to it, because then I was like, okay, then they say, if you are talking about maybe broadcasting license, that's a different issue. But if you're saying TV license, some of us, we don't really watch, we only watch news, but we are already paying for it through multi-choice. Why don't NBC add extra $20 to it so that we pay every month? We know that we are already adding $20 we are paying already TV license through that. So can you give us an answer? Thank God that at least you are here in your DG so that you can elaborate more. So that next time I have an answer when they ask me such question.
I think this is the beauty of the summit. It's interactive. Director General, before I bring this question to you for, could I please just get one more question so that we just answer them at once?
Thank you. Morning, everyone. All the honorable. My question is on the issue of violence and crime against women. NBC, what are you doing? The movies you are putting, the youth are watching some of very horror movie and all these things. What are you doing to stop? Because we have this culture in this country starting now, violence against our women, against children, rape, all these cases. Because now they are blaming us men, but you as NBC, please, we have a very good continent like Africa. We have a lot of maybe nice movies about our continent. Please, the violence is getting too much. We want NBC, even the music you are putting on, we want music that is good for the young people, especially the violence against women. This is something to really And since also our country is a Christian country, I want to see more program, Christian program on our broadcasting, because we are also paying tax, and we are paying our license. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's only proper that I respond to the points raised and also give due respect to the people and come and stand in front. Madam, on the TV license, the situation is as such that we govern by law currently, which is law, something legal you can't fight until it's changed. What the law currently says is that if you own a TV license, a TV set, you have to pay a TV license. So outside that scope, we can't go out. But insofar as multi-choice is concerned, if you're saying you're only watching news, but you watch most of programs on multi-choice, the previous point that I've raised becomes very applicable. We have taken up this issue with multi-choice to say that in terms of where we are as NBC, we believe that they should be a partner in assisting us to actually deal with it. So yeah, that's the long and short of the answer. It's unfortunately so that there's a legal position that seeks to say that if Stanley Similo owns a TV set, he must pay a license. The other one was it on the movies and violence? I think for all the programs that we are showing, especially on television, we have disclaimers that will indicate which age can actually watch and not watch. And this is a common trend. It is not just something that is an NBC problem. So also parents, when they watch these movies, they also need to attune themselves to what that is saying so that they can appropriately also guide what children must be looking at. What we do not have at this stage is most probably an aspect that will bar children to watch on their own. We know that our other, I don't know whether I should say now, competitor, MultiChoice, because of technology, they do have where you can actually pin code certain programs that even if children want to watch, that they will not be able to unless if they enter it via a pin-enabled process. So these are all the things that we are looking at. In terms of the music, I think I beg to differ because most of the music that is on currently is actually more tailored for young people. And that has happened because I also quite passionate about music. If you go back 10, 20, 15 years, people that would have been young at the time, and in terms of music that is currently being produced, there's no more music for them. That is why they predominantly still rely on what is today called old school. So that type of music is no more being produced. Those that are today in the forefront are catering for the youth that is here today, and I see it in my own house. I will go and play a great song, and my kids will ask me, Daddy, what is this? Who is this? And in my mind, I would have been thinking that, oh, they know the music. So I also do take them through a schooling process, but at the same time, they also then teach me as well to understand that. But taking into account the point that you've raised, it does become very important for us as the NBC to understand what the listener and the viewer wants in terms of what they want to see. Hence, we have commenced with the process now of actually running research that from time to time will come to you in one way or the other, where we will be asking you to say, please give us a view. What do you like? What do you want to watch? And when do you want to watch that? So that we can respond to that as well. I think the process of recruiting is actually currently running, and we would applaud. In fact, we will implore that you actually come on board and be part of those that will actually help us so that we can bring content that is relevant to what you want to see. And in closing on this point in particular, we're also guided by Code of Ethics, which is also has been with the NBC for long. I think Umbiro was quite explicit in stating that in terms of information flow that is currently running, we still do apply the traditional way of verifying the applicability of information that we bring to the public. So we do put a premium in terms of how we speak and how we communicate and how we relay information that is coming. And then, of course, CRAN is also there as the watchdog. So they will also from time to time check with us to say, are you still in line? Are you violating any potential laws that are there? So for us, it really becomes, I always tell my guys, listen, if we're going to make programs, let's always do them with the end in mind. If there is a program and we have to review it before we broadcast it, we need to ask ourselves, is this program likely to put us in trouble? If we have to end up either in court or any platform where we have to explain, will we have a case that will, on the basis of being fair and on the basis of being transparent, will we have a case that we can put forward? If we cannot answer that, it means then we will have to change certain aspects of the program so that they can conform with mainstream Namibia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director General Mr. Similo, for answering those two questions adequately, as was of course expected. Thank you very much for that, sir. And I would also like to thank Mr. van Staden from the Office of the Prime Minister. Please be informed that there will be lunch later, so do not suffer in silence. All right. If you're hungry, it can be taken care of. And I'd like to imagine that there might be one or two questions for me. In fact, I'll just answer the question that's on your mind right now. Yes, my voice has been this low since I was 3 years old. And next, could you please help me welcome onto the stage from the Namibia University of Science and Technology, Professor Hassan Jazri, who's going to be talking about, this October month is all about cybersecurity. We need to be able to guard ourselves. So he's going to be talking about quick cybersecurity wellness evaluation for critical organization.
Thank you very much. I think I'm between this program and break. So I better be precise and short and sharp, and unless there are questions, then I would answer them. The VIPs who are here, which I do not recognize, Director Generals, senior officials of the government service, CEOs and managing directors of companies. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving me the chance to speak on behalf of myself as well as on behalf of the Namibia University of Science and Technology in this esteemed summit. I think you have heard many issues and many interesting talks before me, and I'm here to talk about another important area, which is cybersecurity, because all those deployments of e-government systems and ICT systems cannot be enabled without proper security measures that are put in place. Okay, my name is Prof. Jazri. You can call me Jazz. My students call me Jazz in the university. It's easy to remember. So before I proceed, and in case if you have some question letter and you do not want to ask me directly, you can take my email address and you can always email me. Okay, my topic is a quick cybersecurity wellness evaluation framework for critical organizations. Even though this is focusing on critical organizations, but the framework is applicable also to the non-critical organizations. It is just that the critical organizations here is mentioned to highlight the importance of this framework. And the dynamics of cyber threats in the world is well known. And it is also impacting many critical organizations in the world, as well as smaller organizations, as well as the citizen. And this research that I have been doing is trying to coin how do you find a way to evaluate cybersecurity or security state of an organization the quickest way. And while I'm doing this research, I have to share with you that I have come to the term which is called critical infrastructure organization. A lot of the journals and academic debates and also regulations in the United States and the European Unions are emphasizing the protections of critical infrastructure organizations. For example, example of critical infrastructure organization is like power, water, and so forth, that impacting the government machineries and the nation. But I find that the scope of critical infrastructure protection definition is limiting. It is only to the exclusive one. And therefore, in this research that I have done, I have coined a new term called critical organization. So this is a new term. If you try to Google critical organization, you will not find a definition. So this is something that comes out from me, fresh from the oven. So I define that critical organization is defined as organizations or companies, whether government-owned, public-listed, private companies, or non-governmental organizations that are critical to national security, socio-economy, and well-being of a nation-state. So if you fall under this category, then this framework is suitable for you. Okay, while I'm doing this research, I've gone through a lot of publications, and I found that in the topic of cybersecurity wellness, or health check, you call it, major research on cybersecurity wellness has already been published by 3 main organizations, namely the International Communication Union, or ITU, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, which is the US-based standard agency, and the International Standards Organization, ISO, in which Namibia is also a member of ISO. So the problem, what is the problem? What's the issue here? The issue that I'm trying to talk about is to present to you in terms of research from the academic perspective is that the dynamic of cyber threats to critical organizations are affecting the core business and the business focus of many organizations. Thus, there is a need to develop a quick and simplified cybersecurity wellness. And by having this simplified cybersecurity wellness evaluation framework, it can serve as a quick indicator for cybersecurity threats, as well as you can use this framework and develop it as a framework that can be used to evaluate real-time or near real-time situation. And at the moment, I think we are also in the economic difficulty situation, and this framework can also be used to streamline budget that is being spent on cybersecurity or need to be spent on cybersecurity, because we have to be balanced. Either we do not spend or we spend, the problems will occur to us. So we have to be looking at this perspective correctly and rightfully. So the main research that I have been doing was to develop a simplified cybersecurity framework deriving from a well-established standards and practices. And in developing this framework, and I also zoom into developing indicators that would be able to help in facilitating this simplified cybersecurity wellness framework. So the methodology of the research. So since I'm from the academic, then I think I will talk from the academic standpoint that it is research. So from the research point of view, I have employed inductive or interpretative paradigm, using the qualitative methods through concept experimentations, field data collections, and comparative analysis. And the gaps of cybersecurity implementations at those critical organizations were studied, and 9 critical organizations in Windhoek were selected and facilitated to see whether this framework works. And the name of them will not be disclosed because of confidentiality requirement. And the proposed framework that has been designed has been used by these facilitators, 9 of them, and they go on the ground and they use it to evaluate and interviews and to get a quick evidence of validation process on the state of cybersecurity of those organizations involved. And the focus of this framework is simplicity, flexibility, and the time period to complete the evaluation was not specific because this will allow flexibility to the facilitator and to see whether this framework is really simple or not. So after the research of many relevant cybersecurity standards, I have found 2 main standards which are very interesting. First is called NIST, Framework for Improving Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity, which is published in the year of 2014 by the NIST. And the other is ISO IEC 27001, version 2013, which talks about information security management system. Okay, based on these combined strengths of the 2 standards, the following simplified framework were developed. So I have to explain a little bit about this framework. Okay, based on NIST, the table that you have seen, the title, function, categories, and subcategories. Okay, these titles are already there inside the NIST standards. And the topical, such as identify, protect, detect, response, and recover, is also already there in the standards. So you don't have to change it. So I think it's just good that you can adopt it and use it. So based on these topical areas of the functions, then you can put categorizations of your security issues rightfully on those topics. And then in the next column, you can see categories. According to the NIST standards that I have referred to, they are divided into 22 suggestions of categories of security that need to be observed. Okay? And in the column of number 3, which is the subcategory, this is where the innovation comes in. I find out that the best way to move forward without having to articulate these issues in an arbitrary way is to adopt the ISO 27001 version 2013, which has already 114 security controls published under the Annex A of these standards. Since this standard has been studied and it's a long process of development, has been validated, they are good to be used. Why not use it? Okay? So this is the idea of this research, to use this framework and apply this to each organization. Okay, the tricks or the requirements for this simplified framework is that the subcategory of 114 controls is fixed. Fixed means you cannot change, you cannot add, you cannot deduct. It has to be 114 security controls. You have to apply it. But where you apply it, at which topical functions that you put it, does not matter. As long as the end balance is 114, then you are good. Okay, are you with me? All right. So this is the examples. I'm not going to bore you. This is an example of the results that has been come out from this framework where I sent 9 facilitators on the ground to meet each different organization. So you can see the first one is the picture or representations of the results from the first group, first facilitator, and the second one is on the right. So you see there it has like in the functions of identity, it has 56% prevalent risks addressed, and so forth until at the recover side is 100% risks that has been covered by this organization. On the spot, if you are the CEO, you will see this, you know where you want to hit, where you want to apply your residual budgets or whatever it is. And then this is another illustrations by the group 3 and the group 4 and group 5 and group 6, group 7, group 8, and I like this one, the group 9 representation is very simple and direct to the point. So from here you will know the state of each organization right now. In other words, and this is very important because if you appreciate this, if you're able to understand the process, then you will know that you can automate this. And any changes of risks that is happening on the spot, real time and near real time, can easily be detected. So what is the observations and interpretations of the research? As academician, I have to rationalize this research. First, the proposed simplified framework is working well. Okay, it's working, so you can adopt it. Second, the 114 security controls under the ISO 27001 standard, version 2013, shall be used as a baseline, fixed baseline, and because we want this to ensure consistency, meaningful interpretations of evaluation throughout. Why do you need this? Because not only that this framework can evaluate one organization, this framework can also evaluate inter-organization. So if you are, like, for example, a regulator of a specific industry, say like CRAN is a regulator of telecommunications and IT industry. So this framework can be applied throughout all those licensees, and automated reporting can be channeled directly, and on the spot, real-time situation can be observed by the regulator. So as simple as that. So selections of the appropriate controls to relevant functions and categories and subcategories should remain flexible because each organization has a specific risk. As mentioned by Juggins and Marbury in their book, that they were talking about snowflake theory. I was in the class and I was teaching my students about snowflake theory. Each single organization is different in terms of the risk. So you have to deal with them uniquely, right? The experiment did not introduce a specific weightage standards because we want to see what is the impact of flexibility and weightage of standards. But the weightages of standards can be further studied as you make it standardized, then it gives you a lot more information and performances of what's happening on the ground. Standardizing the weightage system according to the sectors will be beneficial to the information sharing across platform. For example, CRAN or ICT industry might look at specific issues as very important, very high. So the weightages can be made higher. So throughout the sector, those variables can be observed and can be controlled and can be easily manipulated. All right? Standardizing the weightages system throughout will enable global sharing. Even if you want to go for a global sharing, which our colleague before me has spoken about, there's still a dream of global sharing. It is not there yet. There are a lot of issues of interoperability that still need to be addressed. But in case you need one, between 2 countries, between 3 countries, this can be negotiated. This can be adopted. And then the reliable results is dependent on the accuracy of reporting of the implementations of 114 controls. If someone is telling lies, someone is telling lies. Nothing much I can do about that. So if I go to the organizations and that organization say, we have everything and everything is perfect, then everything is perfect. But is it so? Only God knows, and the truth will prevail when the problems comes, okay? So the limitations of the research is that whoever that has been attended to report must tell the truth. Or if not the truth, the whole truth, 3/4 truth, all right? Okay? At least it has to be the element of truth for it to be measured. Last but not least is that automated cyber early warning systems can be modeled. So if you are from the industry and you want the collaborative research, and adopt this and make it a systems and sell this to CRAN later or to government of Namibia later. Perhaps this is also an opportunity to develop an automated system which can monitor the health states of an organization automatically, either one organization, 2 or 3 or plural, or sectoral, or even nationwide. Namibia as a whole, from the national security point of view, would like to know how good is Namibia in terms of information protection of critical infrastructures. How well is our infrastructures being defended? Then you have the means to pool data and to know what's happening right away, instead of just listening to advisors and reporting from staff. So you get the facts, and you analyze the fact yourself as a leader. So benefit, conclusions, and the way forward. This research provides simplified evaluation framework, and it works for quick threats evaluation. It will enable the development of automatic cyber early warning system for critical organization, faster and holistic threat assessment to match the dynamic of the cyber threats at both at organizational level, sectorial level, national level, possibly at the international level. Perhaps I'm not dreaming. And flexibility and simplicity and quick is made available through this framework. And further research can also be done to study the effect of the variations of the weightage systems, so that the interpretations of the cybersecurity evaluation criteria can match the objective as well as the strategic intent of a specific industry and specific government policy and laws. With that, I thank you. These are the references. As an academician, I cannot talk without quoting references. That is a standard practice, or else I'll be held liable for plagiarism. All right? All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, do we by any chance have any questions for Professor Jazri? Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor. It was a very interesting discussion. My question is, in May 2016, now, the Office of the Prime Minister, just before you spoke about the interoperability system established by Estonia. Now, Estonia has launched in May this year an index for cybersecurity. It's a whole framework. Maybe you can have a look at it and give your evaluation, whether Namibia should be part of it or not part of it, because it's a whole integrated system,
Okay.
based on very specific parameters, what they want to measure, and then the system spews out the index.
Thank you for the question.
Professor, before you continue, perhaps we could have one more question.
Thank you so much. My question has to do with cybersecurity in terms of information from organization. What you realize in Namibia is that most of the organizations do not really have an idea of cybersecurity, most of them. They do not care who gets the information, for instance. An employee can go with a personal computer home, which everybody in the house can be able to access. So how do you, for instance, look at the cybersecurity from internal point of organization? And the other thing is that we are seeing a space in the cybersecurity where, for instance, the government, some of the people in the government are hiring organizations, are hiring highly skilled people that are going and go and get information, for instance, from, let me say, their opponent or people that are claimed to be maybe political enemy or something. We have seen this with a guy from Qatar, for instance, who was, where there is evidence that the government hired highly security from the Pegasus, for instance. They hired these guys with highly securities. And how now do you deal with this kind of information where there is high people with high money who are creating, for instance, cybersecurity with zero ground, for instance? So that is just my concern a little bit, if you get my question.
Yeah. Okay, perhaps I can answer the first question first. You have the index of security evaluation from Estonia. That is very good. I have not seen it. It's available. Oh, okay. So I think the way to do it is to study the index of evaluation. What is the formula used behind it, the evaluation criteria that has been used. And I find that if it is usable, and most of the index of security evaluations are based on something concrete. And I'm more than happy if I have that document to do some gap analysis between the index of evaluations of Estonian of the Estonian approach, as well as with this simplified framework and with ISO 27001. I can quickly do the gap analysis and to see whether there are something major missings or everything is fine. But whatever it is, to me, I'm encouraging you, if it is there, use it. And I'm sure there are positive side of it. A second question is on the cybersecurity, or internal issues of the cybersecurity in the organization in which the management or the environment is not aware of. I think this is a process of learning, a process of education, and also a process of learning through the hard way. Sometimes when things has happened, then only you realize that how bad it is or it was. For instance, the way to improve the situation is to do initiatives on security awareness campaigns. There are many stories and many real case studies that can be presented within the organizations as during the staff day or information day or whatever it is to start the ball rolling. I just give you a simple example. Your memory stick. How many organizations here are regulating the memory sticks? And do you know that these memory sticks, it used to be in the physical world. If you have a storage of a cupboard, of a file, it will fill up the entire room of this conference. And that amount of information that you possess in the physical world now can be made available in this one memory stick. And if you lose this, you lose the entire information that is there. Or if this compromise to the competitor, if you are a business company, then you are giving advantage to your competitor. So this is an example of internal security issue which need to be managed. And how do you manage this? Simple. It's already there. The simplified cybersecurity wellness framework that has been proposed here can do the job. If you do not want it, the ISO 27001-2013 can do the job, and the NIST publication 2014 can do the job. There are many references that you can use to look into these issues. But you have to start with opening up your mind, or the leadership mind, that you have to be aware. And there are risks, major risks to these issues. In Namibia, for example, the e-government project, yes, it's going to roll out. But there are 3 issues which has to be managed: the confidentiality issue, integrity issue, and availability issue. These 3 issues I wrap up from the academic point of view, I call it the truth. The truth must prevail. If your identity is you are ABC, it has to be you are ABC. Someone cannot along the way change your name ABC to someone else, sell it to someone else, and things like that. So all these must prevail in the entire system, either at the nation state, at the government state, as well as at the government level or even the organization level. The last is the highly skilled contractor that is being hired. My answer to this is very pragmatic. If your organization internally does not have a skill set, it takes time to develop skill set. The first thing you have to do is you have to put an effort to develop the skill set. While you are developing the skill set, you cannot wait, the threats are coming. So you may need to hire expertise from outside. But when you hire the expertise from outside, do not just take them blindly. You have to validate them. What they have done, what are their success story, what they have been doing before. For example, I'm long in the area of cryptography. Cryptography is the encryptions that Van was talking just now, that every link interoperability has an encrypted channels. I've been in cryptography for almost now 29 years. And now, I have only one conclusion. As far as security of cryptography is concerned, trust no one except yourself. So if you are Namibian and you have to safeguard the national security of the country, the cryptographer in the ideal state must be a Namibian. The ideal state, okay, if you can. But if you cannot, you have to rely on someone. Make sure you bind that someone and put him to hellfire if he's betraying you. So these are the things that you have to observe, right? I went to one of the NATO's country. I don't want to name the country. He was the chief scientist of the NATO country. I said to him, you already have a strong encryption from NATO. It is the highest encryption that you can ever get from the NATO members countries. It is under the treaty. Why do you still develop encryption? And why do you still improving it? He has one simple answer. Trust no one, except yourself. So that is the simple state. So security is about managing risks. I'm not saying that you should don't use computers, no. It is wrong. It is about managing risks. So if your company is issuing memory stick, make sure that you have made it in the stock. It is made accountable to the staff. And a proper encryption algorithm are put here. In case it is lost, the information inside here is not lost or is not provided to your enemy or to the competitor or in whatever way. So, in other words, there must be solutions to the problem, and you must embrace those solutions. And some solutions are admittedly to be complex. That's why this research is about simplicity. With that, I think I don't want to stop you from the food. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Professor Jazri. I must admit, Professor, I was tempted to call you Professor Jazz. Then I remembered the last time I tried to shorten my father's name, it did not end very well. So I'll just stick to Professor Jazri. All right, before we go on to our last speech, before we go to the break, let's do a quick recap. From the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation, we've been talking about ICT's role in broadcasting. And from the Office of the Prime Minister, we spoke about interoperability. Usually, as a simple-minded gentleman myself, when I see complex information, I like to find a point of reference in my personal life that allows me to understand something. And I immediately thought of when I was a teenager and I was at a friend's house and I misbehaved. And then his father called my father to tell my father that I had misbehaved, at which point my father told him to continue to discipline me. Interoperability. And of course, cybersecurity. It's about managing risks. The professor did outline that it is very important to always tell the truth. He did also say that at least 3/4 of the truth, and an answer I don't think would fly with many wives in here. So let's just stick to the truth and not 3/4 for your own safety. Right. Before we go on to the break, could you please help me welcome from Paratus, Mr. Barney Hamse, who's going to be talking about Paratus Telecom's role in ICT in Namibia.
Sorry, Barry. I'm messing up your setup here. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Barney Harmse. I am the Group CEO for Paratus Telecoms Group. I see we've got only a 3/4 full, no, sorry, a 1/3 full house. But it doesn't matter. For those of you who don't know, maybe you can just quickly raise your hands. who knows in the room that this is a live broadcast through YouTube onto the internet? Okay. So we don't actually need a room with a full audience. Right now we've got people watching this audience or this presentation, actually this entire ICT Summit all over the world. We've got colleagues that are watching this broadcast from Botswana, from South Africa, from Zambia, from Angola, from Israel, like I said, all over the world. Like I said, my name is Barney Harms. I'm the Group CEO for Paratus Telecoms. My presentation will deal with what is our opinion of the current state of ICT in Namibia and Africa for that matter. First, I would like to it will also deal with our opinion on the African continent because we are an African operator. And maybe highlight on some of the challenges we have, and then most definitely look at the positive things, the brighter side of things moving forward into the future. Dani, can you guys see me okay there? Barry, can I move around a little bit? Okay, so I just want to say hi to Botswana and Angola and Zambia and Israel and, everyone. Just to show you a quick index of how I want to address the points. Typically, before I forget, are there any neighboring countries in the audience? Anyone from our neighboring countries? Not even South Africa? No Botswana, no Zambia, no Mozambique, no Angola, nothing? Okay. Well, I'm glad South Africa is not here today. Otherwise, they would have brought with them that unstable exchange rate. Okay. So as far as the index is concerned, who, what, where, when, and ETA. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare anything until 4 o'clock this morning. How many pilots are there in the room? Who's got a pilot's license? 1, 2, 3. Just for you who don't know, I'm also a pilot. I'm a private pilot. I'm current. So about 2 weeks ago, I had to renew my license. And I quickly used one of my checks. When you have radio failure, as you can see on top, this is typically the checklist that you'll use. Basically what it says is, you broadcast. When you've got radio failure, you just broadcast blindly. And you would say who you are. You would say what your intentions are. You would say where you are. And you would also indicate when you're going to execute these actions. And then finally, you're going to announce your ETA at that specific place. In other words, a safe arrival. So, I wouldn't call the current state of affairs in terms of ICT in Namibia radio failure, perhaps radio silence. But I'll address the points quickly in terms of Africa. Before I get to those critical points, just allow me a few minutes quickly. And I'm going to make it a little bit interactive just to quickly wake up the audience as well. Who are we? Oh, I should stop looking at that screen. I must get used to this screen. Could you just remind me, please? Paratus Telecoms is a Pan-African operator. And we're delivering services, ICT services, in more than 20 countries. And we started developing our own independent infrastructure quite a number of years ago. You'll see there on the slide now, our focus is fiber, technology, satellite, licensed wireless bands or access. Last year, and up until this year, on the 15th of April, we also launched our own 4G LTE mobile data service here in Namibia. And we also have data centers, but not just in Namibia, but in a few other countries as well. Just to focus your attention on my presentation and on Namibia. Namibia is the head office for our efforts in Africa. Okay, so typically what we do in Namibia and elsewhere, we operate the Network Operations Center with active personnel on duty 24 hours a day. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, we deploy and maintain our own network infrastructure. We are definitely the preferred technology partner in Namibia in terms of financial, government, agriculture, mining, commercial, and retail. On that point, you would find it interesting to know that 78 billion NAM dollars of Namibia's GDP is managed by our network in Namibia. So when you go to an ATM and you want to draw cash, we make sure that connection stays up and that it happens quickly. When you've got a shop anywhere in the country and you want to talk to your server in Windhoek, we do that. And then we obviously also offer other value-added services like data center, cloud services, and security. Our service is what differentiates us. That's a very important point. I always say, in this crazy world, if everything was exactly the same, in terms of the technology that you provided, the same equipment in your network infrastructure, the only thing that's going to make you different is the service that you deliver at the end of the day. And that's really where we focus. In the company in Namibia, we have 5 pilots. If you have a problem and it's more than 350 kilometers away, we jump in an aeroplane and we go fix it inside the time frames that it's allowed in the SLAs, the service level agreements that we offer to the public. Up until the 15th of April, our market target has basically been the corporate side. With the official launch of our LTE mobile data on the 15th of April, we started creeping into the consumer game. That means that we are definitely now going to start, or already started competing on the mobile data side of things with our fellow operators in Namibia. And how do we do this? We employ more than 400 people across Africa at the moment, and it's growing daily. Just to give you an idea, the group is still very small when you compare them to these big gorillas. And when I'm talking about those Pan-African operators, I'm talking about the really big ones. So we're still fairly small and modest and humble when you compare us to those big guys. But not too bad for a company that's doing business in Africa, where we've got the head office in Namibia. The group had a turnover of almost 1 billion NAM dollars, end of Feb 2016. We anticipate, or we're trying to forecast, expectation of 1.2 billion NAM dollars for Feb 2017. Now, these numbers would have been much different if Mr. Zuma's exchange rate played a role, say last night to this morning, then I would have had to change the slide. But for today, at this very minute, just looking at the spot exchange rate, we're looking at 1 billion NAM dollars that we turned at the end of Feb 2016. I must stop calling names, I'll get into trouble. Okay, Paratus Group Holdings. As you can see there, we're managing 8 companies and infrastructure actively in the 10 countries that you see there: Angola, Botswana, DRC, Mauritius, then Namibia, South Africa, Zambia. In Mauritius, we also have a company that focuses more on satellite because of our dealings in Africa, satellite specifically, and then also the Canocopy or Rico brand underneath us in Namibia. It's always nice to see a map. If you have a picture, then it speaks 1,000 words. All those countries that I just mentioned now is in dark blue. We've got fiber infrastructure, either our own or fiber infrastructure that we are managing ourselves after we buy it from the incumbent inside that country. Barry, can I move a little bit more? Huh? Get off the WhatsApp, man. Come on. Huh? Okay, you stay in the camera. Okay, and then in the light blue are those countries where we only, at the moment, deliver and support satellite services via VSAT. The very active countries right now: Angola, Namibia, South Africa, Zambia. Just a quick slide to show you in terms of our licensing and what kind of services we offer there. If any one of you, I know you're hungry, so I'm going to try and speed it up. If any one of you wants to have access to the slideshow afterwards, I'll definitely be willing to share this. So just a list of the products and services that are core, like satellite, fiber, MPLS, data centers or disaster recovery sites, cloud, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a quick photo of our our office, newly established office in Angola. We moved into that office building, which is our own, at the end of October. We've been operating in Angola now for 13 years. Next year, March, it would be 14 years. Here's just a quick overview, a map of the fiber connections and the satellite that we offer, and also our network operations center in Angola. Again, I have to emphasize, when I'm talking about network operations center, I'm talking 24/7, 365 that we deliver a service. Just of the criticalness of the service that we offer, we have to have an operation that responds 24 hours a day. And also a nice picture of our teleport in Luanda, a well-established teleport. Again, all our own infrastructure. And then as far as Namibia is concerned, we also moved into our new premises, our own building in October last year. And a map of our network, the network that we manage in Namibia, northeast, southwest, very comprehensive coverage. And there's an image of our network operations center here in Windhoek. Now, you may be surprised to find out that from Namibia, we provide service and support to the rest of Africa in all the languages in Middle and West Africa. That includes Portuguese and French and Swahili and Lingala, etc., except for the regular languages which we all speak. That was one of the first VSAT teleports that we established in October 2008 in the Northern Industrial Area. That's in the backyard of the Nampower Training Center, just across from Ek. It's an image of the VSAT terminals that we serve in Namibia. There's a quick picture and overview of our Zambian team. As you know, the currency in Zambia is kwacha, or US dollar. And then, obviously, the national network that we run and maintain in Zambia. Again, a comprehensive national network. And our network operations center in Zambia. I'm sure they're watching me right now on those big screens in Lusaka, and not the network. What's the network, please? Okay, and then obviously in South Africa, a couple of slides ago, you would see the summary for South Africa there as well. We are fully licensed in South Africa, and still a small organization, but what's important for us when we made the acquisition was to get the necessary licensing in place. And our South African team. There's our teleport in Joburg. And in DRC, we've got fiber pops in both Lubumbashi and in Kinshasa. And then recently, we also set up a company in Botswana. We are now fully licensed in Botswana, and we're now operational. Hello, Sean. All okay on your side? And then, in terms of VSAT, we've got one of our bigger teleports in Rugby in the UK. And then we provide services to almost 3,000 VSAT terminals across Africa using either KU, C-band, or KA bands. And we buy capacity from, how many is that? 4, 5, 6, 7 satellites. And with those 7 satellites, we buy transponder space, we cover the whole of Africa. Our footprint covers the whole of Africa. There's just a map of how it's located or distributed throughout Africa. As you zoom in on this map, the little VSAT terminals become more and more. And typically the beams that we cover, or the beams that we have that cover that specific region, you'll see UTL sat on your left, AfricaSat 1A on your right. And there we've got Telstar T11N on KU specifically. And then AM7 for C-band that deals more with our coverage under the equator. And in terms of value-added services, just a quick picture of our data centers in Luanda and Namibia. And let me just go one back. Left on the Luanda and right on Namibia. Now, I have to admit that the past 2 years has been the most difficult and challenging 2 years in our history of almost 14 years. But factors that played a significant role in terms of the African economy that certainly had an influence on our operations in Africa was the oil price, number one. Oil is not a scarce commodity anymore. There's an oversupply of oil, so the oil price dropped. Can I just have a show of hands? Who in this room believes that the oil price will ever go back to $100 a barrel? Doesn't matter how long it takes. I've got some expert opinions there. Tian, who's the boss of the Namibia Stock Exchange, says perhaps one day. We don't know how long it's going to take. Any other hands that thinks that it's going to go to $100 a barrel again? Tian, I don't think so, but we're going to see who's right. The liquidity of the dollar, needless to say, if the oil price isn't right, then you start running out of US dollars. And then more significantly, when you come to the SADC region, is the influence of the exchange rate, the rand, US dollar exchange rate, or which has got a direct impact on us. So that's been the most significant factors in terms of the Pan-African challenges we've had. And yes, when you're operating as a group, you can absorb the punch a little bit, but that influence goes across the continent. In some countries, you just feel it a little bit less than in others. The pain is a little bit less than in other countries. Now, in terms of, I used radio failure procedures on my very first slide. Now I'm using radio silence for the past 20 years. What's troubling for us in Namibia in terms of the ICT industry at the moment is, and this is something that we handle with the regulator often. Sometimes they are unlicensed operators, but our regulator is doing a great job to make sure that there's no further operations by any illegal operators in Namibia. Sometimes you have, or right now you have licensed operators that is not invested in local infrastructure or telecommunications infrastructure in Namibia. No investment. Some of them don't pay tax, but I can certainly tell you that there's a concerted effort by the government and the regulator to fix this. And we stand 110% behind our government. Now, why this slide is important to me. When we go into the next country, the first place we stop when we arrive in that country is the regulator. So we have to go find out what the rules are inside that country. And we always go in with modesty, with humbleness, and we have to observe the rules when we go into that country. It doesn't help you go explore opportunities in any of those new frontiers, and you do not take notice of the rules in those countries. And we've been doing that. And yes, the business grows a little bit slower, but that's how we do it. So, we expect any of our neighboring countries that comes to Namibia to observe and follow the same protocol. So, but yeah, that is a challenge for us right now, and I don't want to elaborate on this slide any further. Let me quickly focus on TMT, technology, media, and telecommunications. Now, in our definition, ICT, information communication technology, falls into that sector when you look at the bigger picture, technology, media, and telecommunications. before I go to my next slide, I just want to see, before I go there. There's a lot of investment that comes into Africa from the outside, which we call FDI, foreign direct investment. And I think the Chinese have been leading the way in terms of FDI into Africa, most certainly. It's reached a plateau, and there's what they call a new normal now, and it's going to be like that for a while. But how much of the foreign investment into Africa, what percentage of that total investment do you think went into technology, media, and telecommunications? If we had to look at a percentage, Erastus, would you say more than 50% went into technology, media, and telecommunications of all that foreign investment, or would you say less than 50% went into TMT? Anyone? Okay, give me hands. Who thinks less than 50% went into TMT so far, up until now? Who thinks less than 50%? Okay. Who thinks more than 50%? And then the others must raise their hands now. You can't be neutral on this. Come on, guys. Okay. You will then be surprised to know that as early as 2013, already more than 50% of all that foreign direct investment that came into Africa went into technology, media, and telecommunications. Why? Because that is the next step. Some of the industry leaders, like the financial institutions, they're taking the lead to make sure that everyone can, for example, access his bank account online with his smartphone. We're talking about mobilization. So telecommunications, plays a very important role if you look at mobility and the way it's going. Now, my prediction for 2016 and 2017 is that between 60 and 80% of all that foreign direct investment will be into the TMT sector. You must remember, there's already a lot of roads that's been constructed in Africa. And I think there's enough buildings now. And yes, there's still a big gap in agriculture. There's still massive investment into agriculture, make no mistake. But, commodities like oil and that has now taught us a lesson, and that is we shouldn't just focus on that single line item or on that single opportunity when you look at investment. You can milk it only for so long, but you have to put yourself in a position where you diversify before that commodity lands you in trouble. And everyone is feeling it. And I think I just answered the next one, why diversification happens in our industry. It happens in all the economies that you will find. We certainly had to diversify in Namibia. Looking at such a small population and a small market size, if we were only doing internet service provision, or if we were only doing PABXs or only structured cabling, or if we were only an IT company, you needed to change. You needed to start diversifying 6 years ago already, because that's what we did. So we're in the entire spectrum of ICT right now, and we had to do it, otherwise we wouldn't have survived. Now, this is a very important slide for me. I think Fanny van Staden also touched on the basics here, and it's about, to collaborate or have at least a collaborative effort by the players in the industry. The onus rests on us. We cannot, all the industry participants, we cannot for 1 minute think that government can do everything on their own. It's simply not possible. The task is huge, and without our active participation, things won't get better. If we're going to wait for sharing of infrastructure forever, then that exactly is going to happen. You're going to wait forever. You have to deploy your own infrastructure. You have to at least exercise a bit of self-guidance and self-regulation inside that industry to help the regulator, do a good job as well, and take some stress away from them. And there certainly needs to be more cooperation in the industry between the players, so that all of those above points will eventually guarantee you a safe arrival at your destination, whatever your destination is. And on that note, I hope that was a fairly positive note. I would like to thank everyone for sitting in before lunch, and also to the guys watching globally. Oh, before I go away, I must use this opportunity. It will come in handy now. We are streaming, sorry, the guys in charge of the media there at the back are streaming live to the internet. Like I said, anyone in the world can now watch this live stream when you go to YouTube and you put in your keywords. But they're doing so with the success of one of the Paratus dongles on the LTE mobile data network that we have. So it's our privilege to offer this service to the ICT Summit in Namibia. I would like to thank you all for your time. Thank you very much. Sorry, guys. Are there any questions? Except on the exchange rate. Let's not talk about the exchange rate. Anything else, I'm prepared to address. Any questions in terms of Africa or Namibia, ICT?
Thank you very much. Again, my question will be very, very short. I want to disagree with you on one point. Unfortunately, it's not a question. Yeah, I think that infrastructure sharing is very critical to move the telecoms industry to the next level, because of the mere fact that Namibia is very vast and nobody can really cover the whole of it without sharing with somebody else. I'm talking from the point of view of a former staff of a telecoms company.
Thank you very much for that comment. Yes. My slide on the positive cooperation, the collaboration in the market, touched on infrastructure sharing. It's a very critical point. There's no need, especially in a vast country like Namibia. We've got big distances to cover. There's absolutely no need for us and for the next operator to put in another fiber right next to the existing one. There's absolutely no need to build another high site where there's already 2 high sites on that mountain. It's not good for the industry. What does that do? It chases up the price that we have to charge for a product or a service that eventually goes to the consumer. Okay, because somebody needs to pay for that infrastructure. Yes, you bring in redundancy and you deploy infrastructure, you invest, etc., etc., etc. But at the end of the day, overinvestment on infrastructure will lead to higher prices for the man in the street. That is unfortunately so. But I can certainly tell you we're addressing that with our fellow incumbents and with the regulator on a regular basis.
Thank you. Is there perhaps one more question?
Thank you. I just noticed on 2 slides, 2 country slides. One is Namibia, and one is Angola or Botswana.
Or Zambia, or South Africa, yeah.
On the Namibian slide, there is an indication of LTE. On the others, not. What is your coverage of LTE in Namibia and in Africa as a service?
At the moment, the first, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we only focused on the commercial market, on the corporate market. The first step for the group into the consumer market was when we launched LTE mobile data only in Namibia for now, in Windhoek. So the plans are there. We're just looking to where we can rob another bank so we can deploy on a national basis. But yeah, our focus was Windhoek for now. We're not entirely done yet, but it's getting there, day by day, small steps. But again, it requires massive investment. In all the other countries, we've been deploying either fiber or we've been deploying microwave, but certainly technologies that can offer a service to the corporate market. So we are venturing into that space. Just in terms of infrastructure sharing, Paratus Telecoms in Namibia was the leader when we started cooperating with state-owned enterprises or with the city councils to deploy infrastructure more rapidly. In the efforts with our city of Windhoek, for example, over the years, we've established a new relationship where, we have to now draw plans very accurately every meter of the way we want to lay fiber. When we cross the road, we have GPS coordinates of that road crossing. And we first have to apply for these wayleaves from the city of Windhoek. Then they grant us the right to dig up the pavement, for example. But in the same breath, when we put in our sleeves that holds the fiber, or the sleeves and then the subducts, we were the first organization that are leaving behind 2 subducts for the city of Windhoek, 2 empty ones. That means when another operator comes along, they don't have to dig up the same pavement, they don't have to trench there, and they can go to the city of Windhoek and they can rent one of those subducts. So we've certainly been playing our part, I think in a positive fashion, to make sure that the rollout of infrastructure happens quicker. Any other questions? Come guys, you need to ask me questions so I can look more clever. Okay, once again, thank you very much for your time. And if you require any further information, you're most welcome to make contact with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamza from Paratus Telecom. Right now, we're about to take a short tea break, which will last 15 minutes, after which we're going to be having breakaway sessions. The breakaway sessions will be happening simultaneously in Oryx 5, 6, 7, and in here. In Oryx 5, we'll be having Lenovo. In Oryx 6, Paratus. In Oryx 7, Green Enterprises. And in here, we'll be having Mr. Jose G. Quenham, who'll be talking about a deeper look at velocity in big data. So all in all, we'll see you in about 45 minutes. Thank you.